Hello everybody, here I wanted to do another Golf Clash video for you, and I wanted to just kind of focus a little bit on club selection. For the most part, whether it be, you're playing for a tournament or or if you're just doing, everyday tour play, trying to grind out that last tour and finish out those trophies and get on to the next one. One of the things you always want to be thinking about is what clubs to have in the bag and also what balls to be using for said specific tour. Now, if you've checked out some of my most recent playlists for all the shootouts that I'm doing for, if you guys haven't seen them, I've done tours 6 through 11. And I think I got some, relatively good content. It's a variety of different balls throughout all the different tours. There's certain things that you want to keep in mind for every tour. And I just wanted to kind of go over everything a little bit, just briefly, and just talk about some things. So for example, if I'm setting up to play, for whatever reason, some of the earlier tours, 1 through 4, there's not a lot of wind, I'm basically going to be thinking about shootouts entirely. So one of the things that I'm always going to do is I'm going to put my precision woods on and my precision irons on. So no matter what, in fact, let's take a look here at Backbone and Saturn. As you can see, my Backbone's about halfway through 9. It's just not quite to where I want it yet. As soon as he goes into the 90 accuracy, it's going to be a lot better. But for now, it's the most accurate thing I have. The only one that comes close here is B52. And you can see one of the disadvantages to using B52, especially at lower levels, is, well, when you look down at the bottom two lines, topspin and backspin, you basically have to play it very, very low spin, which, is an important thing to consider when you're talking about shootouts, because most shots you're going to need some spin, whether it be topspin off of a rough or it be backspin off the fairway to try to get it as close as possible. So, all the lower tours, I think Backbone is going to be your kind of go-to iron until the wind starts to pick up to a point where, your opponent might be losing some precision via the wind play. That's when you want to start considering breaking into some of these other irons here, or woods, for instance. So, all the way up through, let me just take a look at what I have my bag set up at now. So one of the things that I do on this account is I usually play Thorn. And when you check the top of my bag out, I'm thinking mainly about the first 5 tours specifically. This would be my go-to bag for the first 5 tours, no matter what. Just because of the fact that, accuracy is of the utmost importance. There's a variety of things to be thinking about when you're setting up your bag. But the one thing that kind of overrules everything is if the winds are so small that there's not going to be a lot of margin for error, you want every little last bit of yard that you can get on the shootouts, even if it's a fraction of a yard, because that's going to be the difference between you winning and losing a lot of times, especially on those early tours. And once you get into Tour 6, I'm going to keep a very similar bag to this as what you see here for Tour 6, because I'm just thinking about the shootouts. And, they're going to be mostly driver or wood anyway. You're not going to have a single iron shot, I don't believe. There might be one. The Milano is the only one I'm thinking about where you might need some distance. So for Tour 6, you might want to go ahead and go with the Goliath for Tour 6 because of the fact, now look at when you look at Goliath here, you're giving up a great deal of accuracy here in order to get that power number up. But that power number is going to be crucial for you because it's going to be the difference on the Milano hole, being able to kind of hit something smoothly and easily versus having to maybe go into power if the wind gets really bad. But one of the things that you can do to kind of counter that, especially if you have the balls, is if you want to keep backbone on for the accuracy and make sure that you hit that island every time, then you can just make sure that you play with Titans, for instance, in Tour 6. It's kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of a waste of a ball, but it is kind of sacrificing. You always need to think strategically, just in case certain holes pop up. And if you can give yourself that little bit of edge, those are decisions that you need to be making when thinking about balls that you should be playing on the daily. Like I try to, for the most part, stay kind of below Navigator Tour 1 through Tour 9 exclusively. Like I try not to even need to go beyond that at all. Now, there's going to be some rare exceptions, and it's going to be when you see a par 5 come up and it's kind of into the face and you need to make sure that you get the eagle. Because one of the things that you need to be thinking about is getting that eagle and making it to the shootout. So I do want to talk briefly about that real quick, as there's some strategy that kind of gets overlooked a little bit when thinking about, getting to those shootouts and setting up your bag. And it has to do kind of with the driver. I see pretty much the universal driver is this guy right here, Extra Mile. It's pretty much the driver that everybody relies on. And there's only one reason, and, that you would even rely on this driver. And it's pretty obvious when looking at the stats as to what that reason is. It's the power number that makes guys think that they need this club. Now, I kind of want to just touch briefly on, let me set this as my driver real quick, because I just want to kind of go over this real quick with this driver, because I think this is one of the weakest drivers in the game, aside from Rocket. Let me just take a look at Topper. So here, I consider these drivers about equal to one another. So you're giving up the 17 yards, but are you really giving up the 17 yards? And I'm not sure the answer all the time is that's true, because one of the things that you have more of is curl, and of course topspin is double. So this big topper is actually going to make up for a lot of the distance that it lacks off the tee. But since you always have to, especially on certain tours, you have to be thinking about driver and shootout, big topper is not a very good driver and shootout club. There is some exceptions because it does have that curl. So, you can technically get away with this driver in Tour 11, for example, but I don't see many guys doing that because of, again, the distance number. The carry number is just a little bit low. You would have to, be putting Kingmaker on all the time, and going into power on some things, and it just makes kind of, but if we're talking in terms of length, I consider these about equal drivers. But I want you to know that the power stat is not very important at all. I want you to just think about this mentally. It's just kind of a question to ask yourself, which is, how often do you miss the fairway? Or how often do you miss perfect ball, for instance? So if your number is very low on missing perfect ball. Like for example, if you say, you know, I can hit perfect ball, and another thing you can do is write these down. You can just go for some drives, play 18 holes, for example, and every time you hit a great ball, write that down. Every time you hit a perfect ball, write that down. So you can try to develop some kind of statistical analysis. And if your perfect ball or great ball, so another thing that you can do is you can keep a tally for one tick mark great balls, which would be to one position, ring position from the bullseye. That's another important stat. It's after you lose that tolerance that if you're not hitting those 3 shots, which would be great ball left, perfect, great ball right, at a very high rate, say 90%. If you're not hitting that at 90%, you should not even be thinking about playing with extra mile. It shouldn't even be a thought that you have. Because one of the things that I want you to just think about is how many times do you not make it to a shootout? Like what percentage of times is that? You know, I like to keep mine down 5% or under. I'll get beats outright 5% or less without going to a playoff. Once your number, for instance, gets a 10, 15%, like if you're not winning these outright or getting to shootout 90% of the time, then something you're doing, you need to start thinking about making some changes somewhere, whether it be the balls, the driver, the sand iron to get you out of trouble, the rough iron to get you out of trouble. One of those factors you need to start thinking about making a change. Because I'll tell you this, you're going to lose 100% of the shootouts you don't make it to. So you're basically just giving yourself an instant loss by not making it to the shootout and giving yourself a chance. So I put together all these shootout videos. If you guys haven't seen them, feel free to check out my channel. And I have a lot covered from tour 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 of virtually every win that you can possibly get. I have at least half of them covered. So there's a lot of tools there for you guys to get to the shootouts, but you got to make sure that you're getting to the shootouts. And like I said, if you don't have that accuracy, extra mile shouldn't even be in your thought, or big topper. Those 2 drivers should be completely out of your mind as something to even consider going with. Because you just don't need it. So one of the things that I've done over the last few months is I have gone down to the lower tours, obviously, as you're seeing, tour 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, because I just ran through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shootouts for you guys by going back and playing these tours. And you know what the real kicker is in tours 6, 7, 8, and 9, I was going at it with this club. I used quarterback to get to the shootouts for you guys in those tours. So let's take a look at quarterback here. So here it has 218 power, which means you're giving up 16 yards. It's not a lot, but look at the accuracy number. It's over twice as accurate. Over twice the accuracy. To put that in perspective for you, let's say you hit a 2 bullseye ring shank to the right or the left with a, great ball. It still says great at 2 rings. It's when you get to that 3rd ring, I think it says good. So if you are hitting that tolerance number of just 2 rings over with extra mile, it's the same thing as leaving the bullseye, essentially putting it right on the bullseye edge of quarterback. That's how much that error tolerance is affecting your shot. And I virtually guaranteed that you guys can stay within the bullseye probably 100% of the time when you're going for the bullseye, which means that you're always going to be within 1 to 2 rings of what extra mile can do. In terms of, you're always going to be that much closer, twice as precise, basically, with wherever that arrow falls. And I want you to pay attention here, because look at the backspin, look at the topspin. Topspin's very similar, which means you're going to have, similar run out. Look at the backspin, it's much more. So there's certain shootout holes, and I've gone over some of these in Tour 6. I've gone over a few of these backspins in Tour 8 and Tour 10, the cliff, for example. You see me have the driver shot, which I was able to pull off, mainly for Tour 8, because I was doing Tour 8 with quarterback to get to the shootouts. And I'm still getting to the shootouts every time with the quarterback. Now, the only time that I started leaving the quarterback was once I got to Tour 10. But the main reason that I was doing that, because if you watch a lot of my Tour 10 shootouts, the majority of them are with basic ball. So if I'm playing basic ball, it's going to be hard for me to get to the shootout with quarterback. But that's basic ball. So there's other ways that I can compensate that and still get to the shootouts. For example, Titans, katanas, navigators if it's a par 4. Like, this is all stuff that you can technically do. So, and I kind of want to briefly touch on this subject real quick right before I keep talking about this just a little bit more. But in terms of, tournament packages, you see they've been pushing out a lot of tournaments recently for you guys. So one of the things that you can do is you can go down to rookie on Monday, lose on intentionally, and for only $1.99, you can get either 25 or katanas or Titans for just crazy small amount of money, and a gem boost of 500, which is just a very good deal. And if you're talking about getting that every 2 weeks, you're talking about being able to really stock your balls to where that you could keep those balls for when these situations arise. And that's one of the things that you want to think about if you're using, for example, quarterback, or if you're using, now let's take a look at rock, because rock has even a little bit more power, and I think it's going to go up to even, so you can see I'm 18 cards away. I think it's going to go up to 226, I believe, at level 7. And look at the ball guide. And again, there's still room for plenty more curl, but I want to show you just one thing real quick, because there's something that kind of gets lost when you guys think about that distance number. So let me pull that back up real quick just so you can see this comparison, right? So these are 16 yards apart, right? Quarterback is 16 yards shorter. One of the things that you could do to make up some of that distance is look at my curl number. It's 86 on this quarterback right now. I believe it might go up to 100 once I get it to a 10. If I remember, I'm trying to think. I can't remember if the curl goes up too. I'd have to look at my other account. I know the ball guide goes up and the top spin goes up. That's all I remember. Once something else goes up, it might be the curl. But anyway, so when you look at these two clubs here, we're looking at 16 power difference. Now, I have this shot for you guys that I want you guys to see. So here, this is a QB shot that I did just yesterday. And here you're seeing me put the curl on. You're seeing me hit just a basic ball here in a 1 wind. Just a 1 wind. So look at how I make up the distance on this hole with a quarterback driver. How many of you guys have been down this far with extra mile? So I just want you to realize that it's kind of a misconception that extra mile is farther than this guy. Never underestimate the power of the curl and the slice. All that extra momentum that you're getting on this shot in only a 1 wind. This is only a 1 wind, and I'm getting it down here by the river with barely any topspin. Quarterback only has 4 or 5 topspin. It's another reason that you guys just kind of overlook this club as being something, just a crucial club in this game. So I just wanted to play that for you guys so you could just see as to how, like, what would it take for you to get an extra mile down that far? You can't do it with basic ball. Like, I literally just outdrove extra mile in that drive because of the fact that extra mile just doesn't have the curl. It only has 47, so you can't bend it like that. You can't make it come in and create all that extra ball speed. So anytime you have a hook or a curl and you have a club like quarterback, you want to be taking advantage of that curl. It creates extra distance. It closes that gap, but it bridges that gap between those 16 yards. This whole bottom line of drivers down here, all 4 of these drivers on the bottom trump extra mile. No question to me, hands down. These are the best 4 drivers in the game, the ones on the bottom. There's no question. 5th best driver, probably extra mile. And you can see, let's just look at the rock comparison. So, you know, that gap is already getting bridged a little bit. The curl's already to 68, but I'm pretty sure the curl goes to 100 on rock too. So rock, the one thing that you're missing on rock is topspin. Once rock goes level 8, it is leaps and bounds better than extra mile because the power difference is only 10 yards. The topspin is less, but not a big deal when you consider that the curl's over twice. Because any situation where you can take advantage of 100 curl, you're going to be able to put that much extra distance on the ball to bridge that gap. So if you guys haven't checked out my hook slice tutorials, especially part 2, because my first hook slice was more of just an intro. It was kind of more of just kind of a wing it video where we were just kind of messing around with a whole bunch of things. Well, then I took a month to just kind of collect myself and start actually honing in on a lot of those shots for like a month straight. And then I put out a part 2. And in part 2, you're seeing much more of those shots being honed in on and actually, you know, setting values to them. And so if you guys haven't checked that out, be sure to check out that video, Hook Slice Tutorial 2. It is on my YouTube channel, and you can find it by doing the search on my channel. That's the easiest way to find it for Hook Slice, because there's only 2 videos that say Hook Slice, and they're both Hook Slice tutorials. So that's the easiest way to find that. And again, when you're, comparing these drivers here, you know, it looks so obvious to you guys that you have to use extra mile to win, where it's the exact opposite, which is actual reality. The extra mile is successful for guys who hit perfect ball 80-90% of the time. The other 20% of the time, is guaranteed one or perfect ball, one ring greats or perfect ball. If you're not doing that at an extremely high rate, don't even consider putting extra mile in your bag. You don't need it. It is a useless club if you can't keep it in play and get to the shootout. Don't try to be like, oh, well, I'll just get it back next time. If you're forfeiting 10% of your games to not making it to the shootout, or 15%, whatever it is, you should start monitoring this statistic. Because if that statistic becomes too low, like too high of a number in terms of shootouts missed, then it's definitely nothing that you should be using as a driver. So, I want you guys to know that when I put together these shootout videos for you, 6, 7, 8, 9, it was all using quarterback and a couple Thor shots. It wasn't until Tour 10 that I even started thinking about pulling out Apocalypse for you guys. And the only reason I started to pull out Apocalypse in Tour 10 is because I figure at Tour 10, a lot of you guys actually have this stuff. So what I was doing to get to shootouts, and I know I have some streams with just quarterback. I don't have them titled as such, but I know that you can find them. Whether it's Tour 6, I know I have a couple maybe in Tour 6, maybe Tour 7. I will update that. And, a couple of you guys keep asking me about my trophies going down on my main. If I ever bring it back up, my trophy counts, I'm going to do it with quarterback. I'm just going to let you guys know that right now. And I'm going to be streaming all the way up in all the tours using just quarterback to show you how vital this club can be in the game. It is one of the most underappreciated, and you can see why as when you just watched that basic ball drive that I showed you guys. It is a killer club. So you need to be thinking about that. And like I said, let's say, you're putting on one of these drivers, quarterback or the rock, because these are, I'm telling you, just great, great clubs. Then let's do the side-by-side of these two. These are two of my favorite clubs in the entire game right here. And the biggest reason, when you're looking at that curl, it is amazing. Plus the ball guide. You get a ball guide like that, and you're in Tour 6, or whatever, wherever you are, it can save your life on shootouts where you need to actually pull out your driver. Because you can just see the ball guide the entire way to the hole. And I know I've shown you guys some shots in those tours. Like for example, I know I have some shootouts where I'm taking quarterback off the front of that green, the one with all the bunkers in Tour 6, where I'm backspinning it, hitting the backspin shot with QB off the front of that green because it has 70 backspin. So I know that's something that I'm doing. I also have another video where I take it off the island. That's because it's 100% accurate. You can actually go for the island shot legitimately. You don't even have to hit perfect ball. You can hit a one ball great and it's still on the island if you play the wind right. So all this stuff is stuff that you can actually do, which is just incredible. And these are just two of the most overlooked clubs in the game because they don't have the power number. And like I said, you can make up the difference for the power. So if you could keep it out of the bunker 100% of the time, if you can keep it out of the rough 100% of the time because you're using the most accurate drivers in the game, it's so funny that guys use the most accurate wood. Everybody in this game loves sniper. But these two clubs, by those same guys, are getting looked over 100% of the time. There's literally almost nobody in the game using these clubs. And it just blows my mind because I use them all the time. They are awesome. These are awesome clubs. And let's take a look. It's going to be, the difference between Rock and Thor's for me, when you look at the curl number, quarterback, where my quarterback was like 80 something curl, it can go just as long as my Thor. Just as long as my Thor. And let me just show you this side-by-side comparison here, because this is the point where you can see extra mile just becomes obsolete. There's what benefit do you have using extra mile at this point? I mean, it just shows you, statistically speaking, there's literally no reason to even think of it as a club any longer. As soon as Thor's is a 5 or Apocalypse is a 5, complete game changer. Let's take a look at Apoc 4. But you don't need the Thor's or the Apocalypse to have a better driver than extra mile. And that's kind of what I'm showing you here. So here, even Apoc 4, this is the point. And getting it to Apoc 4 is actually relatively easy. Right? So the first time you hit 3,900 trophies, hopefully you can get it in the shop one time. If you get it in the shop one time, you're 14 cards away from getting it to a level 3 immediately. And then from that point, you're only 20 cards away from getting it to an Apocalypse 4. So you only need 34 cards to get it to an Apoc 4. And there's a variety of different ways to get 34 cards. The golden shot can be one. Tournament, of course. You have to do expert. But I just want to kind of point that out to you. You only need 34 cards to get it to this point where extra mile is obsolete. There's no benefit to extra mile at this point because the accuracy number is just too low. And this just goes back to that point that I'm letting you guys know. And you see a lot of great players using extra mile. And, they can get away with it because of what I mentioned. They're great players. They're always thinking about where the trouble is. They're always thinking about where can I miss? And they also hit perfect ball almost every time. So if you fall in that category, sure, go for it, use it. But start thinking about that as a question. How often do I hit perfect ball? How often do I hit, one ring great balls on either side? And aside from that, how often am I missing the shootouts? And those are your factors that you just want to be thinking about. And like I said, if for example that you don't think that number is high enough or acceptable enough, that you're getting out of these troubles, spots that you might be putting yourself in with extra mile, then I'm telling you that probably quarterback is the way to go. I think until Rock gets up to maybe a 7, the quarterback is kind of the club until Rock's a 7, to where you can start considering using Rock. And when you look at the stats here, like I said, that 16 yards, it can be made up. Any hole that has any kind of bend, and you can just utilize a hook shot. And like I said, if you need help with the hook shot, I have hook shot tutorial number 2, hook slice tutorial 2, goes over quarterback and exactly how to pull off a hook or a slice. It even gives you a reverse curl slice method where you can just hit a dead straight ball with 100% accuracy. It'll just go dead straight every time when you do a reverse curl. I go over both those shots in that tutorial with quarterback. You will hit the fairway 100% of the time if you want to hit the fairway 100% of the time. From that point, it's only getting to the shootout. all you need to do is, if you need a couple extra yards, use some of those Titans that you have been saving up. If you don't need to use the Titan, don't use the Titan. Save it so you have it for when you do. One of the best balls that you can use, the best value ball out there, is the Navigator. It still gives you the same wind reduction as the Titan, as the Katana, but it's way less than half the cost. I think it's a third of the cost. It's the most affordable. It's the most affordable ball out there for something that's extremely useful, is the Navigator or the Quasar. But when you look at the Quasar, you don't quite have the wind resistance, but it gives you that little side spin boost. But what you don't have in side spin, you can use curl for. So that's why I prefer the Navigator ball. I'd rather put on a little curl myself to hit the shot and have that extra wind boost. So you'll see me in a lot of my shootouts. If you guys haven't checked out my Tour 6 and up shootouts, most of the balls I'm using are Navigators. It's the most useful ball, in my opinion. And like I said, that tournament value deal that I gave you, $1.99, if you lose rookie intentionally on Monday, one of the best deals that you can get. Like I said, 500 gems, that'll buy you, 60 Navigators. Tons of balls, even more than that. I think it's like 70 some. And you can basically go all the way up through Tour 9 with Navigators. Almost exclusively. Almost exclusively. There's very few exceptions to where you actually need to pull out a ball. I mean, the wind has to be totally against you. And it has to be like a long par 5. If you can get to the green in 2, just pull out a Navigator. That's pretty much the exception. If your opponent looks like he's not going to get to the green in 2 because he drove it in trouble and can't do it any longer, that's the time that you need to make a decision. Well, do I try to put the gas on here and try to win this outright, or do I try to play something a little bit more risky, say with a Navigator, and just go kind of perfectly down the middle, and then maybe even have to, power into my sniper on the second shot to still get there, to just get an easy win with a low ball. And if you still get to the shootout and you have a Navigator on, at least you still got that reducer ball. That's just kind of like, you just got to kind of make that decision on the fly sometimes, as do you try to put on a nicer ball, or do you save it for later if your opponent's already in trouble? And that's why, I really like the Navigator. But like I said, that's the one thing you're going to be sacrificing with quarterback. But if you can hit a hook on a shot, it'll bridge that gap. I can't tell you how many times in the times that we were coming up for the shootout videos, Tour 6, 7, 8, 9, where I just outdrove my opponent's extra mile with quarterback. I can't even count the times that it happened. It happened so many times that it's amazing. And it's not because I'm pulling out all these amazing balls, because I, for the most part, do not pull out any of those amazing balls. I think you see a couple shootouts in every tour where I might have a few katanas on, maybe. I don't think really any of my shootouts are going to have very many kingmakers, maybe like 2. So, I'm basically encouraging you guys to save those balls. And if you need some tournament strategy as well, there's no shame in, if you can guarantee yourself some balls and you need to go down into pro for one tournament, for example, to get 75, 100, 150 guaranteed kingmakers. There's really no shame in that. It saves you from having to buy them. It's not like you're going to buy them with gems. So there's no shame in getting those balls that way. Same thing with rookie. If you need to go down to rookie to get, what is it, 75 Titans maybe? If you go down to rookie tour for one tournament, win the rookie tour, get the 75 Titans, that's 75 Titans that you can just be holding on to until you actually need to pull them out. You know, I'm very stingy with my Titans. I don't pull them out very often on this account. In fact, let me just go over balls here for you guys, because let's see, I haven't bought Snowman. All those Snowmans I got. So I won the pro tournament, got those. Haven't bought a Titan in this entire game. Still have 133 left. Now I got most of them from, let me look at my banners. I either played 1 or 2 rookie. I played 1 rookie tournament, and the rest I've got from tournament deals. So I still have 103, and it's like those deals that I told you, $1.99. You can't beat it. Same with these Kingmakers. I have 500 Kingmakers on this account. I haven't bought a single one. It all comes from course management and just thinking about, you know, getting to the shootout and then executing the shootout. And that's what I've been doing for these videos for you guys. It's all for you guys' benefits, so you guys can hit those game-winning shots in the shootouts. You can move up the tours, and you can do all this too. Same thing with Berserkers. You know, I've got a couple of these from Golden Shots, but as you can see, you know, I'm a little limited on my balls. Aside from that, here I have some Marlins. They're super cheap to buy. Here I have Navigators. You see, I don't ever usually have a lot of these. I just buy a pack at a time, 9 balls. Spend 60 when I need it. And another thing is that free chest right there. I mean, you get 5 of those, 6 of those a day. You get 6 of them a day. That'll give you at least 80 gems right there, plus this pin chest. So I've been lazy with my pin chest, as you can see. I have another one stacked right behind that, so I need to take care of 2 of them, but both of them come with gems as well. So if you do your pin chest every day and you do your 6 free chests, you're looking at 100 gems a day that you can be earning per day. So regardless if you're playing or not, you come in, you load into your account, you get these free gems, 100 per day. It's pretty awesome. So I know I got a little carried away there. I did want to briefly keep talking a little bit about club strategy here, because I think for the most part it's relatively universal here. And like I said, you know, put those accurate clubs on. The only thing that's truly important, so short iron is never important. It's up to you. That entire bottom line of short irons, use as you wish. Use what you're comfortable with. There's no right or wrong answer on the bottom line there. With the wedge, you know, very similarly, the last 3, whatever you can use. I mean, look at these statistical. So do you want more power? Do you want more accuracy? I choose the accurate method all the time, because having that accuracy to me is the difference between if I make a great ball, it might still go in. So until that rapier ever, you know, kind of equals my end bringer. So let's say, you know, I get the next level up and the accuracy goes up, but I think it might be an 8. You know, I could temporarily switch over, but, you know, I go with whichever one's more accurate because I want to make more shots. I don't need to hit that top spin shot that you see a lot of guys do in order to make my pitches. So you'll see me use whichever one has more accuracy. And on my other account, since Endbringer has 100 accuracy, it's Endbringer. Like, that's the answer. So that's why I use that club. Same thing down here. I mean, you know, something to always think about, you know, that Razor's a great rough iron for you guys. You can see once your Nirvana gets up to a certain point, it kind of overtakes it, but you can see as a nice bailout. If you don't have, just imagine I don't have that Nirvana. Look at that Razor. How nice those numbers look if you don't have Nirvana. It can just be a crucial club for you guys. And same thing down here at Spitfire. You know, these are the decisions that you need to be thinking about. If you're putting yourself in trouble, in the bunker, in the rough, are you missing the shootout? If you miss the shootout, what could I have done to make things better on myself? You see, I'm using my Spitfire, even though the numbers on it are awful. It has no backspin. It has no accuracy. It's a very average club. Look at the power. Look at the top spin. It bails me out of every situation. So if I hit that green side bunker, I'm still putting it on the green, giving myself a chance at the birdie to get to the shootout. So let's look statistically, because a lot of guys are using this Malibu, and you can see the difference, 11 yards plus 60 top spin. Well, that's equivalent to like 35, 40 yards. So do I want 35, 40 yards to bail me out if I need it to actually get to the green, to make it to shootouts? And the answer for me is 100% of the time, yes. As soon as I unlock Spitfire 1, that is the second that Malibu became obsolete to me. Never even started considering it as a club. I don't have ball guide. I don't have backspin. I don't care, though. I want Spitfire in my bag because I want to be able to get to the green and make it to shootout. That's the most important thing to me. Holding out is nice, which you can still do. I do have a rough iron, short sand wedge, and wedge tutorial video for you guys as well, if you haven't seen it. And I talk a lot about, you know, coming up with a strategy to play rings for those shots. So if you haven't seen that video, definitely make sure that you check that video out as well, because that will help you in those situations figure out how many rings you need to go on a Spitfire, for example. And let me just talk briefly about the tours real quick, some of the later tours, since, you know, I talked about the shootouts for 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11. So if you haven't checked out my shootouts yet, you can virtually see by the clubs that I'm using in the different tours, those are the clubs that you should be using for your tour play in those tours. So let's talk a little bit about Tour 6. For me, personally, it's going to be quarterback in Tour 6. It's going to be sniper. And it's going to be B-52 or Goliath, probably Goliath, because of that Milano. Now, like I said, if you want the accuracy, you can get away with backbone over Goliath here. Because remember, when we talk about the Milano, you need at least 3 or 4 backspin with your iron shot off that island. So the problem is, the backbone, you look at the 8 yards. That 8 yards is the difference between you hitting the island and not hitting the island a lot of the times. So that's something you need to be considering, because you are right at max power on, say, a backbone, whereas you're not at max power on a Goliath. On Tour 6, you'll always be able to hit Goliath, almost no matter what the situation is. As long as you have a navigator on, there's virtually no other way. Like, you'll always be able to get to the island. Always. So now, what are you forfeiting here? Accuracy. So that's when you need to look at, so let me just select Goliath, because, you know, I think you might have to play Goliath unless you wanted to be using, like I said, katanas, titans every Tour 6 game, which I just don't think you need for one shootout hole. It's not worth it. So you should be using Goliath in this tour because of that. Now, you need to look at B-52. But as you can see, you know, I only have like 2 to 2.5 bars of backspin here. it's not going to be enough. If you don't have a B52.5, then don't worry about B52 in Tour 6. You need to be using Goliath because you need that backspin. So you got to forfeit a little bit of the accuracy, which means just concentrate on that perfect ball. You need to make sure you're getting it. So get that perfect ball, and you have great success in Tour 6. And, aside from that, the way that I think in terms of sand wedge and rough iron, I'm always putting my longest guys on there. So always keep that in mind. You don't always have to go with the longest. Like I said, if you want to put on Malibu, it's a great conditional. It's just not great for if you need to keep it on for an entire tour. For example, there'll be times that I might put Malibu on for one shootout hole, for example. It could happen. It just depends on the hole. Do I need the ball guide? Am I going to be around the green? If the drive is a factor, Malibu's never going to be on. Because if I do drive it in the sand by accident, I need to make sure that I'm on the green more than anything. That's the only thing, because I need to make sure that I get to the shootout. So always keep that in mind. But aside from that, you just need to be thinking driver, wood, long iron. The rest is going to be, personal preference. So that's kind of what I'm going over here. So when we're talking about Tour 7, I'm going to play very similarly. I'm going to like that quarterback or rock. Of course, if you have Thor's hammer up to a decent level, 4, you can go with Thor's hammer. Because none of Tour 7 requires it as a shootout. You're just using it as a means to put the ball in the fairway. That's it. There's no real long holes in Tour 7. You can get away with quarterback. You can get away with rock. The holes aren't long. All you have to do is execute the drives into the fairway 100% of the time. So I'm going to put my best accuracy clubs on there to do that. And again, if it's a par 5, I might just up it to a power ball. If it's not, then I won't. I might stay down at a navigator. So with Tour 7, we're putting only our accurate clubs. Now you can make cases for Guardian, Sniper in Tour 7. Whichever way you go isn't going to be life-altering. But the thing that I do want you to know is the winds are going to be kind of small from time to time. That little bit of extra precision that Sniper has, in my opinion, is going to give you a little, just hair of an edge. Tour 7 is the one where I'm kind of on the fence about things. Which one's better? Is it Tour 7 or is it Sniper or is it Guardian? And it can go either way for Tour 7. And that's the only tour that I really am kind of on the fence about things. So, but like I said, personal preference, I'm going to take Sniper. It definitely has a little bit of an edge. And of course, I'm going to go back starting to go back towards the most accurate long iron in the game. It's going to be what's on. Because I want to be in there close. Every little yard is going to count in these shootouts. So I'm going to put the clubs on that are very accurate. And if you haven't seen some of my Tour 7, I do have a couple of them. Tour 7 is probably the least amount that I have on the shootouts right now. So that's going to be the first thing that I start working on next, is taking care of some more Tour 7 for you guys. Because it's the one thing that's really lacking on my page is Tour 7. So you're going to see me with Sniper in Tour 7 and Backbone. Once I go up to Tour 8, I'm going to have to change things up a bit because there's some long iron shots that you have to hit on some par 3s. So again, it comes down to your B52 versus Goliath in Tour 8 again. Do you need backspin on the long iron shots? And the answer is yes. Do you have it? You need at least 40-ish. If your backspin if your backspin isn't, 35-40, you don't have enough backspin for Tour 8. So you're going to have to look at Goliath. This is mandatory. You have to have Goliath on for the case that those 2 cliff shootouts come on. So there's 3 cliff shootouts. 2 of them require a long iron. You need the Goliath to have the distance to make sure that all the winds are covered. And if you haven't checked out my Tour 8 shootouts, I highly recommend you do so. It's the most extensive tour that I have done right now. I must have like 40 shootouts for you guys in that tour. There are so many that you just have to go check those out if you're struggling with Tour 8. And in terms of, if I'm setting up my bag for Tour 8, it's going to be Goliath. It's going to be Guardian, no question. You can get away with Sniper too, but if I want to win more games, it's going to be Guardian. And, the best way that I put this for guys is, do I want to win 60% of my games, or do I want to win 55% of my games? Or do I want to win 65% of my games, or do I want to win 55% of the games? Because you can win both ways. But there's 2-3 holes specific that if Guardian pops up and my opponent has Sniper, I'm essentially beating them 90% of all shootouts just on 2 or 3 holes in Tour 8s. That's how crucial Guardian is for me. It's an instant win anytime that I see Sniper on 2 or 3 specific holes. And if you haven't seen the shots that I've hit, like I said, go to my Tour 8 shootouts. You're going to see quite a bit of Guardian shots that I have a Guardian shot for every hole. So since I have a Guardian shot for every hole, and let's just take a look so you can see, I'm only forfeiting 10 accuracy here. It's not very much. The ball guide is pretty negligible. You don't need 4.5 ball guide. Everybody thinks you do. You don't. How many guys do you know are using that 4.5 ball guide and putting it in the hole 50% of the time? It just doesn't happen. It's not happening. So if you're not making the shot with 4.5, you just need to be able to at least see 3 or 4 bounces, especially if you're hitting these stop shots. And, I talk a little bit about this in a lot of the shootouts. I'll set up to a specific spin number, and I just know that the way that the spin is going to react after it comes in. It's basically just practice and honing in. If you always go for, say, a 5 backspin shot, you're going to know basically what the ball trail after those first 4 3.8 bounces do anyway. It's not going to be something that you need to see. And of course, you can see you got that extra 5 yards. So, in Tour 8, for me, it's Guardian, no question. It's the one tour that is just cut and dry. Use Guardian. Like I said, you'll probably up your win percentage 10% by using Guardian once you get the shots down. Now, you are going to need to make sure that you've studied the shots well. And like I said, I have Tour 8 very well mapped for you guys. So definitely check that out. All my tour guides are in playlists. So if you go to my page and you go to playlists, you're going to see them all broken down. I have them broken down by streams and shootouts in every tour. So you can either go to stream or you can go to shootout. And that'll give you playlists of all the content that I have for that tour in that one playlist. So it's for your guys' benefit. So definitely check those out. Once we go up to Tour 9, it's going to kind of be that same argument that I mentioned. I can stick with, me personally, I can stick with quarterback in Tour 9. Like I can take quarterback up quite a bit. Let's think about some of the holes. You have the Milano par 5, right? The one that's a layup. Well, obviously, you only need a quarterback to lay up in the fairway. You have the Oasis, which is like a right-to-left hook. Sorry, my bad. A right-to-left bending fairway Oasis par 5, right? Well, you can hit the hook shot. If you don't know the hook shot, you can go to my hook slice tutorial, especially hook slice number 2, and you can learn the hook shot. To just hook the quarterback to the end of the fairway down on the right. And you can get the eagle that way. So what other long par 5s do you have? You have the other Milano, which is the one that kind of goes straight out with the bunkers. And you can hit quarterback on there with a little bit of curl as well. And like I said, you know, the curl is going to make up for that distance. And if you guys have seen me play that hole, or if you haven't, you can definitely check out some of my stream videos. But what I try to do is, you know where that neck is on that Milano par 5, the one with the, where you kind of have to curl it a little bit or side spin it or whatever. I try to stay just short of the neck there. And with quarterback, you can easily see the ball trail as to where it's going to run out to, because it already has, here it has 4. As soon as it goes to 10, it goes to 4.5, I believe. So you're going to have a ton of ball trail in this club. You can see exactly where the ball's going down the fairway. So you can easily still get away with quarterback up through Tour 9, no question. No matter who you are. It's going to be accurate. It's going to keep you in the fairway. And like I said, you can manipulate the hook slice when you need to. Anytime you put curl on the ball, it's going to go farther. So anytime that you can start adding that curl into your shots, the ball's just going to start bridging that gap between extra mile and quarterback. So keep that in mind. And in terms of, you know, this is when I'm going to go back. So Tour 9 is when I'm going to, you know, I'm still going to use quarterback. I'm still going to use sniper. I'm going to have to use Goliath because of that Milano shootout hole that we mentioned. You're not going to have, you need to make sure that you can hit that island with a 3 to 4 backspin shot for Tour 9. Plus, it has good curl. And when you get to the Oasis holes, this curl can come into play. And like I said, you know, I have Tour 9 for the shootouts mapped. I know I'm probably only at about a half list. Maybe a little bit under a half list. So I know it probably is about a half list for 9 because there's not very much in Tour 9. Tour 9 I think is restricted to, no. There's a few more. I was going to say there's only 4 shootouts, but I think there's 6. So yeah, I probably am only about a half, at best half mapped out in Tour 9 for you guys. But I'll be taking care of some more of that. And of course, keep in mind, Tour 8 right now and Tour 10 both have cliff holes. So the 3 cliff par 3s, those were the ones from the Spooky Cliffs tournament, if you guys remember. And those overlap in both tours. So you'll see me play similar clubs, with the only difference being, so there's quite a few less of the Sakura holes where I use some of those high backspin Guardian shots. And you guys remember the Sakura tournament that we just played? That last hole? That's one of the most crucial holes to have the Guardian for. It can just save you with any wind. With any wind, you can win that shootout with the Guardian club. So I have that one relatively mapped out for you guys. If you guys remember that last Sakura Hills, definitely check out my Tour 8 for that. But when you're going into 10, you know, I start playing with sniper because that Sakura hole and a few others aren't in 10. So the holes start changing, so I still have to execute some of the shots with sniper as well. So in Tour 10, I go back to sniper. I can still get away with Guardian, with quarterback. I've done it. But I do usually, especially if you have them, Thor's hammer is going to be, or even Apocalypse, either or. It doesn't matter. So if I use Thor, for example, for the most part, if I get something where I need a little bit of curl, I'm going to make sure that I have a katana ball on with a Thor's hammer. Whereas with Apocalypse, I can get away with navigators. So just some strategy for you guys. It just depends on kind of where you sit. And you can see what I'm looking at with in terms of club. One has curl, one doesn't. I don't really need backspin in 10, so I can go with Apocalypse. So me personally, I might go with Apocalypse here and just use navigators for Tour 10. But if I put Thor's hammer on, and this goes true for the last 2 tours. If I use Thor's hammer in the last 2 tours, I'm going to always make sure I have katanas or kingmakers on. And this is what you're saving these balls for, or the last 2 tours. This is the point where when I maxed originally, I had a Thor 3. And if you guys want to see some of those streams, I have them up to where you can get by with minimal clubs and just take advantage of the lack of curl with full side spin balls. So that is the biggest strategy that I can give you guys, is if you're going to use Thor's, for example, make sure that you have the full side spin balls on for the last 2 tours. If you want to go with Apocalypse, or I'm telling you, I'm telling you that I'm thinking about, when I come back up, just using maxing with quarterback exclusively, not even switching drivers. 1 through 11. I'm thinking about going the whole way up with quarterback because it's doable. All you have to do for the last 2 tours is you have to have katanas and kingmakers to bail you out because you don't have the yards. And that's it. There's shots that you can play just to get to the greens and get to the shootout on those tours. You're just basically trying to get to the shootouts. And there's ways to, kind of fudge things a bit to still make it to the shootouts with a quarterback. And all you need is, like I said, to just have some of those kingmakers saved, katana saved, titan saved, just for those last 2 tours. For tours 1 through 9, you're going to stay pretty exclusively navigator or below. Except conditionally, you'll pull out a ball when you need it. And when I say you need it, that means, just making sure that you can get to the green in 2. If you feel a little uncomfortable getting to the green. But one of the best things about quarterback is you can always go full max on a navigator. And you don't have to have very much precision. You'll stay out of the bunkers and everything. So that's one of the great things about that club. And if you guys haven't checked out my other content and all my streams, all my shootout videos, be sure to do that. Of course, as always, if you want to share any of my content with other people that you might know or know of that are looking for a little bit of extra help, feel free to always do that. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you hit the subscribe button. And aside from that, if you like the content here, give it a thumbs up. I'm not really sure what that does, but do it anyway. So, yeah, I wish you guys the best of luck. And if you guys need anything else, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to do the best that I can, like I said, to keep updating some content. But I just wanted to just kind of talk with you guys for just a bunch of strategy here, whether it be tour play, tournament, whatever. I just wanted to put out just a pure strategy video for you guys, just so you can go over everything and just give you guys kind of a different perspective and just something to think about. So good luck out there, and let me know how it goes. See you guys on the next one.